Are we really listening? And maybe even more importantly, are we speaking up? To me, these two questions define tonight's gospel. There are lots of parts, and we might become fixated on the story of the rich man and the beggar Lazarus. Notice who it's addressed to, the Pharisees. And it's about a bunch of guys who are in fine purple robes, ignoring someone right at their feet. The Pharisees. There is an urgency on the part of this man to convert. But once the rich man realizes that his fate is sealed, he does at least start to think, I have 5 brothers. And he wants someone to go back and talk to them and change their ways. And in the parable it says, well, they have Moses and the prophets. If they don't listen to them, they're not going to listen to anyone. So who is Moses and the prophets today? I think it's no one less, whether we like to hear it or not, than you and I. A couple of days ago, I was having breakfast with a friend in a local place. And part of the conversation, I was lamenting various aspects about my health situation. And even probably there was a tinge of not only frustration, but maybe wanting to give up. Well, unbeknownst to us, there were 2 women who were seated at an adjacent table. And they got up to leave. They were done. And one walked right by, and the other came up to us. And she apologized for listening in. And she said she couldn't help but hearing about my complaining and what sounded like this loss of hope. And she asked if I were a believer, because I was dressed in plain clothes. And she introduced herself as a Jehovah's Witness. She gave me a card, a personal card. Said disciple was the only title, and had her phone number. She said, you know better, Father, than anyone, not to give up hope. But if you ever need anything, I want to just leave you my card. And she apologized profusely for interfering and so on and so forth. As she walked away, my friend and I discussed that whole experience. We talked about all the people that we know that are great believers in the Catholic Church. And we wondered if any of them would ever do that. Sometimes we make fun of the whole thing, the Jehovah's Witness and the door-to-door and so on and so forth. But in a sense, God was speaking through her. And I couldn't help but hear it. In the last few days, it has not, unfortunately, completely stopped me from self-pity. You might think that I'm strong, but believe me, just talk to my friends, I'm not. But it did prompt me a number of times in the last few days when I was given the grace to focus not on me, but on someone else. To try to offer them a message of hope. When we come here week after week, it's because we believe. We believe that God is speaking to us, that God is calling us. And it's not about going up to somebody like she did, although that would be a wonderful thing. And it's not about going door to door necessarily. But it is about that message. We don't have to, just say about Jesus Christ risen. It's about what hope do we offer? What peace do we offer? What's our persona? Does it make a difference that we're believers? Because we know down deep in the fiber of every one of our beings that the world that we live in needs to hear that message of hope. There's a lot of negativity, a lot of partisanship, a lot of anger, a lot of lines drawn in the sand. And that's not going to go away. But people in general, and individuals especially, need to hear a message of hope, kindness, compassion. That's what we hear week after week after week in this word. And not only are we called to listen, but to speak it. To speak it by not necessarily getting up in a pulpit or in that kind of word, but just by who we are and by how we are with one another. Are you listening? Are you willing to speak up?